Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to deliver on behalf of the World Economic Forum this morning's speech at the third Robot Revolution Initiative International Symposium. Let me also say how personally excited I am to be speaking to you, since I have been admiring Japan's robots since I was a young boy. Joking aside, I can think of no other society on the planet that has embraced the potential of robotics with such foresight as Japan. Nonetheless, I'm here to warn you today that even with this innovation mindset, you and your industry are at risk of massive disruption on a scale that you can barely imagine. I would like to briefly touch upon 3 points which I think are important for connected industries, which is today's main theme: the fourth industrial revolution, key questions for leaders, and shaping the future of production. Let me first start with a few words about the World Economic Forum, who we are and what we do, before I dive into the fourth industrial revolution and the fundamental transformation that is happening in the world today. The World Economic Forum is an international organization for public-private cooperation. Our mission is to improve the state of the world by engaging decision makers, the leaders of society, from government, business, academia, and NGOs, into initiatives and processes to shape global industry and regional agendas. Wherever there are global, structural, societal issues that cannot be fixed by one stakeholder alone, we try to play a role in connecting leaders to find solutions. This can be on big, comprehensive issues like climate change, or more specific public-private issues like how to ensure cross-border data flows in an increasingly fragmented and regulated cyberspace. We were established in 1971 as a not-for-profit private foundation headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. In 2015, we were recognized as an international organization by the Swiss government. We have nearly 600 staff coming from over 60 nationalities, with physical locations in Geneva, New York, Beijing, Tokyo, and San Francisco, meaning that we're pretty much working 24 hours a day. We are most known for our physical meetings, such as the annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland, which will be held again next January. Our annual meeting brings together 3,000 leaders from business, politics, and society to discuss and to debate the most important issues on their agendas. This year's theme will be on creating a shared future in a fractured world. However, we also host meetings around the world, such as our annual meeting of new champions in China, which gathers the world's most innovative entrepreneurs, scientists, and technologists to look at innovation in the fourth industrial revolution. I've seen some of your companies there, and I hope to welcome more of you in the future. But the real work of the World Economic Forum does not take place at our events. These are just the places where our communities of leaders gather to share their work. Throughout the year, leaders are working on collaborative projects to improve the state of the world. I will talk about some of these initiatives later in my remarks. What I want to share with you now is the mood of the leaders who are right now making their preparations to join the Davos Kaigi. And as an impartial and independent organization, we provide a platform for leaders to address issues they care about the most. I think you may be curious to know what is preoccupying your fellow CEOs in other industries and in other countries. Earlier this year at our annual meeting, we still had lots of CEOs and other leaders asking, is my business or industry really going to be disrupted? But in the last 10 months, we have seen the discussions shift to a much more proactive attitude towards the future. Now the questions are more, what will this disruption look like? How can I prepare myself as a leader, and how can I prepare my organization? I can say that the global leaders in Davos are feeling that the transformation is already taking place. What is this disruption that is so preoccupying leaders? We call it the fourth industrial revolution. The world is changing at an unprecedented pace with profound implications. As human beings, it's difficult for us to understand exponential change. We're used to living in a linear world. But sometimes technology advances exponentially and jumps ahead in a sharp and dramatic way. This is why we are consciously using the term revolution, which denotes abrupt and radical change. Revolutions have occurred throughout history when new technologies and novel ways of perceiving the world trigger a profound change in economic systems and social structures. Today, new technologies are combining in unforeseen ways and at an unprecedented pace. They are fundamentally changing the way we live, work, and relate to one another. They are even calling into question what it means to be human. In its scale, scope, and complexity, the fourth industrial revolution is unlike anything humankind has ever experienced. We do not yet know how it will unfold, but one thing is clear. The response to it must be integrated and comprehensive, involving all stakeholders of global society, from the public and private sectors to academia and civil society. Let me paint a picture for you of what this fundamental transformation is bringing. Imagine you're not feeling well. You swallow a pill, which sends nanoparticles through your blood and relays information back to your smartphone about the state of your health. Your smartphone uploads the information to an AI, which consults the latest medical journals and provides global best-in-class diagnosis much more accurately than a human doctor could. Based on your genetic information, the AI sends a customized medical treatment, a recipe for a pill which you take to your local pharmacy and have 3D printed for you on demand. It sounds like science fiction, but the various technologies I've just described are already existing or in trials in different disconnected industries and countries. There are regulatory hurdles and safety hurdles preventing these innovations from being connected and scaled, but they're already here. And that is the challenge in dealing with exponential change and the speed with which innovations are combining and creating new opportunities. Think of all the innovations and technologies that have combined to create self-driving vehicles: GPS, 4G, LiDAR, AI, processing power, Internet of Things. All of these technologies were developing on their own, but combined, they create completely new opportunities. Often the pace of change is not visible, even to the experts. If you had asked in 2015 how long it would take for AlphaGo to beat a human at the game of Go, most of the experts would have told you that it would take another 6 to 8 years. And yet in March 2016, AlphaGo did just that. The number of possible moves in Go is 2.08 times 10 to the power of 170, more possible moves than there are atoms in the universe. Yet the deep learning program was able to teach itself every possible move in infinite combinations. People did not understand the power of machine learning and what it represents in terms of exponential improvement in AI's capacity to do specific tasks. With new technologies, there are new powers and new responsibilities. How do we make sure that these technologies are used to benefit humanity and society? How do we make sure that these technologies are inclusive rather than divisive? We have a rare moment in history to think about the risks and reward of these technologies that are going to change civilization as we know it. But we cannot turn away. The change is coming whether we agree or not, whether we like it or not. We have the responsibility to shape how we want this revolution to unfold. The Forum's purpose as a multi-stakeholder institution is to invite all the voices of all the stakeholders to drive the outcomes of this transformation. To do this, we need to look at the situation in a global, systemic, and holistic view. We need to see the horizon from the sky, not from the deck of a ship. We need to focus on purpose and values for the sake of future generations. So what is the fourth industrial revolution? Well, the first industrial revolution came with the use of steam as a mechanical power in the 18th and 19th centuries in Europe and North America. It fundamentally transformed production capabilities, but also reshaped our physical world. As steamships could head upstream, railroads could link urban centers in new ways, and factories could be moved away from traditional power sources. Likewise, the first industrial revolution changed the fabric of societies. Women moved into the factories, family life was restructured, urbanization increased. Not all the changes were positive. Working conditions, child labor, industrial pollution were just some of the consequences of this revolution. The second revolution came with the use of electricity to create mass production. Steel, oil, electricity, the internal combustion engine, telegraphy, telephone, photography, automobile, and flight. All of these innovations were made possible by the first industrial revolution, but combined and interacted to create innovation at an unprecedented rate thanks to the power of mass production. Society was also transformed. Living standards improved significantly in the new industrialized countries as the price of goods fell dramatically due to increases in productivity. There were massive improvements in public health and sanitation thanks to public health initiatives such as sewage systems. But unemployment soared and many laborers were displaced by machines. The third industrial revolution is one we all know well, having experienced it in our own lifetimes: the shift from analog and mechanical processes to digital ones. This digital revolution is still unfolding, but leverages the power of computer processing and telecommunications to fundamentally alter the way in which we organize our businesses and societies. At this point, I think I should point out that all of these revolutions are still ongoing. More than 1.3 billion people still do not have access to electricity. And many institutions are still struggling with the third industrial revolution and trying to become digital organizations. While media, finance, and telecommunications have already been disrupted, other industries have not yet been disrupted by digitalization. As individuals, many of us struggle how to manage our time and families now that email and internet have forever altered our lives. Now we're witnessing the emergence of another transformation with its own dynamics and systemic repercussions. The fourth industrial revolution builds on the digital revolution, representing new ways in which technology becomes embedded within societies and even in the human body. It involves the convergence of new technologies that blur the lines between physical, digital, and biological systems. Genomics and advanced materials rely heavily on digital technologies for the interrogation of molecular and atomic structures. It is transforming entire systems of production, distribution, and consumption. These impact more than economics. They impact values, identities, and possibilities for future generations. The fourth industrial revolution is marked by emerging technology breakthroughs in a number of fields, including robotics, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, quantum computing, biotechnology, the Internet of Things, 3D printing, and autonomous vehicles. The fourth industrial revolution is impacting multiple sectors and stakeholders. It is reallocating responsibilities. In many cases, we need to find the answers to unknown questions and unforeseen situations. Just think about, in your own industry, what it will mean for global trade and GDP numbers when you're 3D printing parts for robots rather than shipping them from suppliers. How will our frameworks for governing global trade, dealing with intellectual property, or safety standards need to evolve as a result? We are only beginning to ask the right questions, but technology is not waiting for us to figure it out. It is already progressing, and we need to catch up. So what is the best approach in this new era of transformation? I would like to share 4 key frameworks to this question. The first thing I would ask you to take away is that in the fourth industrial revolution, we should focus not on individual technologies, but on systems. The light bulb was a technology of the third industrial revolution, but it was the underlying delivery system, the electric grid, and the economics of energy creation and distribution, which amplified the invention. In less than 150 years, we effectively conquered the night for the first time in history. It's the same with the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution. The true impact will be in the systems thinking that accompanies them. In the fourth industrial revolution, the analogy might be ride-hailing services like Uber, Didi, and Grab. It was not until processing power, GPS, and mobile device penetration reached a certain level where they could be combined into a system to create new business platforms. Same with autonomous vehicles. We're reaching the tipping point where each technology will be mature enough in its own right to combine into a system which will then develop exponentially. And here, Japan's vision for Society 5.0, which thinks about the impact of cyber-physical systems on the economy, society, and the individual, beautifully describes this perspective. By focusing on the creation of a super-smart society in Japan, leaders from business, government, academia, and society can think about how these inventions will drastically impact the various digital and non-digital areas of our lives. The challenge, of course, is how we design a future and future systems that are beyond our current level of understanding, conceptualization, and expertise. I'm not sure if you can see this picture clearly, but it's a picture of one of our young global leaders, Mark Pollock, using a robotic exoskeleton. Mark is paralyzed from the waist down, but he's one of the first pioneers to use this technology for assisted mobility. In the fourth industrial revolution, we need to take a stance towards technology and technological systems that empowers society and individuals. We need to conquer the fatalistic and deterministic view of technology. Otherwise, there's no room for optimism and positive transformation, and society's agency is nullified. If the continued development of technologies in the fourth industrial revolution increases environmental destruction, inequality, gender bias, educational divisions, and social exclusion, then we're not living up to the aspirations and not achieving the purpose for which all of these systems ostensibly exist. We must create a positive narrative to unify and shape society. However, as we all know, all of the preceding industrial revolutions have had a dark underbelly. They have had externalities of global impact. For many non-developed countries, one of the possibilities of embracing industrialization and globalization was the incentive to become sourcing nations. This image here from Nigeria is a case in point. But sadly, despite the Basel Convention, the third industrial revolution has resulted in hazardous e-waste, some 40 million tons per year, which are being exported to developing countries that do not have the capabilities to safely recycle and extract precious metals from these disposals. The result is toxic waste and devastating pollution. The current economic system does not incentivize benefit optimization in this case, as the price of extraction has not yet lowered to equal the price of mined elements. We must do better if we want to spread the benefits of the fourth industrial revolution to all parts of society across the globe. The digital and fourth industrial revolution technologies are challenging societal values and norms, everything from the acceptability of selfies and our notion of privacy to cyberbullying, what constitutes stealing, and even what we accept as facts and news. The sharing economy, for example, is challenging policies in a variety of industries, simultaneously providing services that we need and want at affordable rates, but also leaving gig economy workers with fewer and fewer benefits. Our societal commitments to accessibility, inclusivity, and fairness are also at stake, as technology has the propensity to aggregate wealth in fewer and fewer hands, create reinforcing cycles of higher and higher educational requirements, and externalize costs to stakeholders who aren't included in development. When we focus on action that produces a future by design, we will use innovative thinking to come up with new frameworks that can drive society towards a particular desired outcome. Active governance by individuals, the civil society sector, companies, governments, and beyond must play a central role on how we integrate these transformative technologies if we do not want to end up with a future delivered by default. The challenge is, if we pay attention to critical governance issues, we are likely to if we fail to pay attention to critical governance issues, we are likely to allow undemocratic, random, and potentially malicious forces to shape the future of technological systems and their impacts on people. We need the right technology, the right education, and the right governance to create positive outcomes for the environment, society, and individuals. I read this week that advertisers can target you psychologically based on a single Facebook like. All it takes is one click for an advertiser to be able to determine your preferences and target an advertisement specifically to you. Facebook has aggregated so much data, behavioral data, that just one click is enough to determine your psychological makeup and profile. And the same is true for nearly any digital service. What happens when brainwave decoding technology advances? Or what about eye movement tracking and interpretation? Are we really maximizing the benefits for humanity and society? How much freedom of choice will we still have? AI provides a huge opportunity to address complex issues at an unprecedented scale and to discern patterns from enormous inputs of big data. In fact, in China, where I'm currently leading the forum's office, many AI experts are telling me that China will win the battle for AI supremacy, not because of its current government plans, but because of the massive amounts of data that are being pumped through AI algorithms due to differing standards of privacy and data ownership. And this leads me to my fourth and final framework. Positive values must come to the front as a feature of these new technologies and how we integrate them. We must consider the common good, multi-generational environmental stewardship, and the primacy of human dignity. Technologies that are used, either purposefully or accidentally, in a way that increase disparity, poverty, discrimination, and environmental damage, work against the shared and inclusive future that we seek. So what do we need to do? What does Japan need to do? We need to act based on the transformation happening in the world. We need to envisage and shape a future together as a broader group of leaders like the ones gathered here today. And we need you to engage with other leaders in other regions and other industries and sectors. Together, we're better. Here are some first thoughts. The ultimate purpose of products will no longer be to be consumed. We will see more products as a service, as a resource, and as societal pressures come to bear. Products will be the means to serve, to shape society and its ecosystem rather than purpose or an end unto themselves. Empowering. Think about all the possible consequences of products. Products should empower society, not increase environmental destruction. Make products that are better, that matter to society. Design. There's no single future. How we design our systems will create multiple possible future scenarios. We need to create more opportunities than constraints. We need to try to optimize those future scenarios for the greatest shared benefit of all. And finally, products are value-based. Positive values must come to the front as a feature of these new products, technologies, and how we integrate them. Put enriching human dignity at the center of your product development. So how does the World Economic Forum put these ideas into practice in our own organization? We've conceptualized 14 different areas for strategic focus. These are 14 areas where we feel that public-private cooperation between stakeholders is essential to solve the challenge. They are 14 areas where systemic global thinking is required. Our approach begins with an examination of the key trends and drivers shaping each of these futures. In a collaborative fashion with leaders who most influence the respective agendas, we devise joint initiatives or areas where collective action can drive positive change. For example, on the future of consumption, how will changing consumer behavior alter demand and production? For the future of education, gender, and work, what new skills will workers need? How can we best develop them? These are just a few of the questions our different communities of leaders are working on. But let me talk about one system initiative in particular that's interesting and relevant to this group. The Shaping a Future of Production System initiative takes a broad, full value chain interpretation of the meaning of that word. In this view, production is more than manufacturing. It involves manufacturing, trade, transportation, warehousing, and support. And when you look across the full value chain of production, you see how significant the sector is, representing over 30% of global GDP and more than 850 million jobs. Production systems have a major impact on the environment. They're responsible for about 30% of global energy consumption, 30% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and 20% of primary energy supply. Changing the way our industries make things will be an essential step in alleviating these negative impacts worldwide. Our work on the future of production began with an examination of the key trends and drivers shaping production, which we've identified as the following. Things like technology, innovation, human capital, and skills. Questions such as how will new technology drive better environmental performance? These are the drivers that we looked at. From there, together with CEOs, experts, and regulators, we developed possible scenarios to inform and guide decision-making. This is one of the strengths of a multi-stakeholder platform approach. Leaders can share perspectives and get informed in the pre-collaborative space. But of course, each organization needs to develop its competitive strategy to perform best under these possible futures, leveraging their comparative advantages. Scenario 1, disrupted. Under this possible future, we see an exponential takeoff in a number of technologies. In the space of a decade, from 2020 to 2030, AI moves to the epicenter of the production calculus. Traditional economic systems and dynamics of production processes are disrupted. It all amounts to a totally new production paradigm. The onset of wearables sets the stage for the technology-augmented human, both on the production line and at home. It's the end of mass everything. Thanks to ubiquitous digital technologies, the lion's share of production is fully customized and delivered in real time. Under scenario 2, deterred, massive supercomputers and AI are mobilized in support of addressing global challenges and improving the human condition. But the heavy price is a loss of security, erosion of privacy, and concern over stability. Serious technology-expressed disruption, competition, and conflict in cyberspace create a kind of stop-start effect on the development of production. The result are islands of innovation that are segmented, proprietary, and heavily protected. Both unemployment and underemployment has increased significantly, and there has been a discernible shift from a formal to an informal economy. Small medium enterprises thrive, filling in the gaps left by economy of scale producers that were unable to convert their technology endowments and legacy infrastructures into the new systems. Scenario 3, damaged. Rampant populism and unbridled protectionism translate into a profoundly uneven landscape for global production. Production is stratified between economies seeking to leverage new technologies and others who do not have production of scale or first-mover advantage. Widespread islandization of both economies and the production system that undergird them occurs. Economies with low labor costs and marginal productivity levels are the hardest hit. The widely anticipated effect of labor dislocation through automation is somehow more gradual under normal globalization circumstances. Scenario 4, devolved. Each year, the effects of climate change have become more and more severe. Natural disasters become the status quo. The pressure is strong for support for local production, customization, and the pursuit of the circular economy. The human being at the center of everything approach thrives in order to satisfy local production requirements. There are production opportunities for large, low-cost producers on the one hand and smaller, high-end manufacturers on the other. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the fourth industrial revolution is completely different from previous revolutions and is the fusion of these new technologies and their interaction across the physical, digital, and biological domains. What we are witnessing today is the creation of new business models, the transformation of production and consumption models, and the emergence of new transportation and delivery models, all at an unprecedented speed. Leaders from all stakeholders of society are working together in collaborative processes to shape the future of our world. We invite you to join us on this journey. The future of your business depends on it. The future of society depends on it. The transformation is already happening. Are you ready? I'm gonna get them.